Hi, everybody. It's Nancy Reyes with For Your Canine.
And Joanne Stoike with For Better, For Worse.
And Lisa Batasca with Canine Defined.
As you can see, we have lots of guests today. Too many to list on the ads. But it's a really important topic and kind of near and dear to all of us since we work with rescues, or rescue has been a big part of our lives at one point or another. And Joanne really felt that it was important that we kind of talk a little bit more about it because we're hearing more and more distressing things about what's going on in that world. So we wanted to kind of shed some light on it and kind of talk a little bit about it. So let us know if you're there. And we want to get started with introducing our guest for the evening. So Kim, we'll start with you.
Hi, I'm Kim with Canine Kindness Rescue in the Quad Cities.
And you're in you run a private rescue, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Actually, Kim, is it a foster-based rescue or do you have a facility?
We're 100% foster-based. We don't have a facility.
Okay.
Okay. Awesome. Emily?
Yeah, I'm Emily Schmidt with Canine Kindness Rescue. And just to mention also, we don't have staff. It's all volunteer.
Oh, okay. Sam?
I'm Sam with Rock Island County Animal Care and Control. We are the county ran shelter.
Sarah?
My name is Sarah. I'm the shelter manager at Sam's Rescue in Hannah City, Illinois. We're a privately owned, just donation-based shelter.
And Tori.
Hi, I'm Tori. I'm the behavior consultant at Sam's Rescue with Sarah. I help with dog intake and any behavioral issues that may arise. And then I help with our county shelter as well, network dogs to transferring them to other facilities.
Okay. So one of the things we wanted to kind of start off is to talk about the different kinds of shelters and rescues, because there is a wide range of them and they're not all the same. I think a lot of people may have that misconception that it's the same, that a privately ran one is the same as a county ran one, and there's differences in it. And like in Kim and Emily's case, it's all volunteer based and privately funded, which is way different than government funded. And there's pros and cons to both of those. So could you, Kim and Emily, you can jump in. How do you get the money what do you do to raise funds to run the rescue? Because I'm sure since everybody's volunteering, there's still medical things that are needed and things like that, as they go on.
Yeah, we do a lot of fundraisers throughout the year. We do fundraisers. We have adoption fees. We have events, and then just privately donated by community members. And then we can apply still for grants that just give to rescues like ours.
Okay. And so are you a 501c3?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. All right. So, so just to kind of further along, how do you get your volunteers? Do you do, ads, or do you just, talk to people and? Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty much word of mouth, kind of like the social media begging, can be what we like to call it. But yeah, all of our fosters are just, volunteering their time. And then we have a small board that's, also just volunteer. So all of our donations go right back to the dogs.
So, so because you're volunteer based, you're limited in the dogs you can take. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. Especially because we're foster only. So that kind of limits us to what fosters will take. We don't have a building we can put them in.
Mm-hmm. And your fosters take 1, 2 dogs, or it depends, whatever they can help you with, right?
Right. Yeah. Depends on what, it depends on each foster basically.
Okay. Yeah. So, so that's a really good point, because I think people get upset when they're trying to, relinquish their dog and you can't take him, and it's because there's no place to put the dog. Okay. All right, Sarah, you're in a county funded.
No, we are also.
Oh, sorry, Sam.
Me.
Yeah, sorry, I meant Sam. Sorry, Sam, Sarah. You guys are sorry, Sam. Sam, you're in a county shelter.
Correct.
So how does that work? It's fun. So what are there are stipulations that you might or rules that you have to follow that because you're government
Right.
funded?
So in the past, we've tried to help as many shelters as we could. Right now, we are very limited. We can only take Rock Island County animals. So in the past, we might have helped somebody from Davenport or something out, but we just can't do that right now because of the limited space that we have. But we are expected to raise our own funds as much as we can. The county does give us a stipend each year in our budget, but we're still working super hard to make ends meet, but.
And you say there's a non-for-profit that helps with your.
Correct. QC Paws is our nonprofit. They're the 501c3, and we do all the same things that Canine Kindness does, the fundraising and, what did you call it? Begging on social media. We do that too. We're not beyond it.
Yeah, nobody's above it when it comes to
Right.
that. I get it.
And so, Sam, you have to take anything that gets
From Rock
dropped
Island
off.
County.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a big difference, right? Kim and Emily can maybe say, "Hey, we can't take a dog," where Sam really doesn't have
I
that
can't tell
level.
them no. I mean, if I say no, it's going to end up there anyway. So at least this way, if I take it from the owner, I get as much information as I possibly can.
Mhm. Okay. Okay. Now, Sarah, you're a privately funded, and you guys do have a building, right?
Shelter.
Yeah, we do.
Shelter.
And we're just funded by donations. We have fundraisers and we beg on social media just like anybody else. We have donors and grants and all that, but we do not take everything that walks in the door because we are privately owned, so we're not contracted with the city or the county or anything, but we do support our local county facility, and we try to pull from them and mainly just help kind of lighten the load of our county.
Okay. So when you say you're working with your county, you go in and pull the ones that you can take, or
Right. Yeah, we Tori and I will go there and we'll meet, different dogs, and depending on adoptability and our space and like our resources, then we'll pick and choose whichever dogs to pull to our rescue.
okay, all right, which must be kind of hard. I know it was when I was doing that. So
Definitely not fun. Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely not fun. Okay, and as we were talking a little bit before we started, what are some of the main reasons people relinquish? Or, I mean, I know strays is a big one, but what are some of the top, reasons that they turn their dogs in? Go ahead, Sam.
Okay. We get because they don't have the time for them anymore. Now they're working different shifts and they're not working from home. They're, just too many hours away from the dog, and, the dog's tearing up the house or the cat is peeing all over, and they think that they would be better in a better home.
Mm-hmm. And so what do you say when you say like there is no better? I mean, not that there is no better home, but
Better than sitting in the shelter.
Right.
I
Try
feel
that.
like they add another excuse on top of that. If you
Yes.
come back with that, they'll just give you a different excuse and they'll say, well, I can't afford them anymore.
Mm-hmm. And what's the average age you guys get the dogs?
Teenage.
Yeah, I was going to say a year and a half.
Mhm.
They're
Yeah.
not cute and
Ours
little
are a little
anymore.
older.
They're now adult size, acting puppy behavior.
Yes. I know. I have one.
Yeah, exactly. It's probably the most popular age that I've seen in this area.
I have one, and I can
Yeah.
see what happens.
Yeah.
I would never, but I get it. Yeah. And so do you find, because I years ago, one of the bigger reasons is there was no training. There was like the dogs weren't trained. So they were tearing up the house, and they were just, misbehaving. And instead of, the lack of training was one of the bigger reasons for not being able to
Right.
keep the dog, because they don't have the time for it, right? They don't have the time to train it or the inclination to do that.
I
So
think we see that too. They just don't say that it's because they haven't trained the dog.
Exactly. Exactly. They don't want to make the dog look bad and say, "Oh, it's chewed up my couch," because they want you to take the dog. So they just try to take responsibility to make it look better and just say, "I don't have the time for it."
I agree with that.
yeah, and then so we lost Sarah.
Yeah.
Hopefully she'll pop back in.
Yeah, she's trying to.
So yeah, they don't have time. So do any of your organizations offer like training? Even though I'll be honest, many years ago there was an organization here that tried to do some free training, and it was not very people. The people that didn't need it took it. The people who were relinquishing it were the ones that were taking the classes, so that didn't work as well.
At SAMS, we do, if it's a harder to place dog or if it's a long-term dog, we offer up to 3 free sessions. And then if someone wants to return a dog for a behavioral reason, I'll go to their house and do 1 free session just to make sure there's nothing else we can try. Now, of course, if it's like an emergency situation where it's truly a dangerous situation, we say, please bring them back. But we do try everything else we can first.
Okay. All right.
We do too. We
I pass
offer-
Joanne's cards out all the time.
Yep.
Well, and let's be fair, right? I mean, you have people that pay a full fee and they only come to half of the sessions of classes that they paid for. So, I feel like if somebody really needs help, I think a lot of us will help them. But if you're not willing to commit what you actually paid for, free is not going to make any difference.
Right. So my so here's my so what can we so because I think about this all the time. Actually, when I started my business 19 years ago, one of the goals we had is to try to educate people so that the dogs wouldn't end up at the shelter. Because that, if you can get them trained or the people can understand their dogs better, they would hopefully not take them to the shelter. And if they did get a dog from the shelter, I know Lisa and I did quite a lot of training and trying to get them, more adoptable, and we would take dogs that would stay with us for a while to try to get them to get them to stay in their homes. But it's still, this was 19 years ago. It's still a big problem. It's still like, I don't know. Do you think like educating the people, I don't know, what's the answer, if there could be one, to help to keep the dogs in the homes, and what do you educate? Because a lot of people are saying you should educate kids so that they grow up, but just takes so long. And it's the general public that is it's disposable, and they just get rid of the dog. So, and then I think sometimes they give money, which is great for you because there's a little bit of guilt there, right? That they can't keep the dog, so they feel better throwing money at it, but that's still not the answer. The dog's still going through that process, and even appealing to their, like, hey, this dog's is better off in your home, with you than in a shelter. It's just that, how do you not get that's a real thing? Like, yeah, it's not the best home, I'm sure, but it's better than being in a shelter in that environment, right? And they still just don't want to be bothered with it. Like you said, it's not cute and small anymore, and it's not adorable. I don't know. So what do you think we can do to make it better?
Sometimes I wonder too if the rise of no-kill shelters and rescues, like the growing popularity of them, almost make it seem more accessible to get rid of your dog, because more people see all of these no-kills and rescues and, oh, it's going to go to a great place. They don't understand what really is going on in the shelter system. They see it as like, this glorious, almost like a doggy daycare in a way. And there's so many that I think it's more accessible too.
Yeah, I've definitely found like being honest with people about the outcome of their dog if they surrender it, and like what the reality is of surrendering your dog to a shelter. I think that has really helped in a lot of situations. I mean, of course there's people that just don't care, but like most people are like, oh wow, like I did not know that's how, things happen. So it's pretty shocking to them, and then they're more willing to put in that effort to find other options. But it's kind of all situational. Like everybody has a different reason and whatnot. So
I also think, though, people are not, like you said, they're not educated with what happens in the day of the life of a rescue dog. That's whether they're in a shelter situation, which is extremely stressful, which is a question I have for some of you guys in terms of trying to balance that stress or attempting to do your best with that. But then also, foster-based home rescues are very different. It's a way different level of stress, I think, depending on how many people, how many dogs are involved in that particular home and so forth. So do you guys, with that being said, do you guys do any kind of, I know education's a thing, but I think that's something we're always going to battle, because I think the accessibility, and then also the fact that, like, you know, keyboard warriors, right? So if you say, I can't take this dog, they go right on and start saying, so-and-so won't take my dog, even though it's in the contract, blah, blah, blah. And then they get slammed. So are you guys encountering or seeing those things in terms of, the fallout from not taking a dog, you know, through social media and stuff like that? And then 2, are you guys matching people to dogs based upon, you know, because I know there's Meet Your Match, there's a variety of things that are out there.
We try our best to match them up with the people, but I think everybody, sometimes I feel like they know the questions we're going to ask and they have the answers ready to go they want that dog. It doesn't matter if it was the best fit for them or not. But yeah, I feel like people want that instant gratification of getting the dog. And then when it's time to put forth the effort to them, they give up and bring it right back to us. By the time they've reached us, they're done. They've decided, nope, we're getting rid of this dog. So, or cat.
And I think like a county shelter has it way harder with adopters in the sense that a no-kill does. Just being able to see both sides. You know, we're privately funded at SAMS, so even if they're great on paper and they come and they like a dog, we don't have to say yes. We can still deny them. We don't even have to give them a reason to why we're denying them. We're at the county shelter. They're not allowed to necessarily say no to someone. They have very minimal requirements, and they can't say no just because they have a bad gut feeling. So your clientele is definitely can be a lot different between those two.
So to Lisa's question, so Sam, could you walk us through the day in the life of a shelter dog at your shelter?
So we get if they're on our adoption side, we put them out in the morning, we clean their kennel, we bring them back in. If we have enough volunteers, most of them get out to run in the yard. Sometimes we don't have that great number of volunteers coming in. So the most outside time they get is on the outside of their kennel while we're cleaning the inside of it. And then we go out and clean the outside of their kennel. They might have had to go through surgery that day or medical, or if we're treating them for kennel cough, they're getting their meds that way. But as far as having time to spend with them, we don't get tons of that. I mean, I literally have 3 dog girls. 1 goes back and forth between dogs and cats, and 5 cat girls cleaning every day. And we were up to 500 animals recently.
Wow. Can you say how big your kennels are? So it sounds like you have the guillotine, the indoor and the outdoor.
Yeah, we have the indoor, outdoor.
And how big is the indoor space that they are in, runs?
I would tell you we have one side that's probably 6x4 and the other side is probably 4x4.
Okay.
Not big. And the outside kennels are 4x4, all of them on the outside.
I just think it's important that people understand that.
Yeah.
They're not treated badly. I'd rather they be at the shelter than they be out, wandering
Totally.
around.
Totally. But
it's not life.
No, it isn't. And that's what I mean. And this is a shelter that's giving, it has that ability to have an indoor outdoor. We have a lot of shelters that don't have that.
Yes.
Right.
They don't even have that at a minimum, right? So they don't have that ability to go from one space to another. They're stuck in that one small area for a long time.
And we have a good portion of our dogs that have been there for over 6 months. They've been there quite a while. Yeah.
So, yeah. All right. So, and that's day in and day out, every day. So how about at the fosters? I know it varies from foster home to foster home, but that's a little bit different picture, right?
Yeah, it just kind of depends on the foster home and their schedule. We do have some retired fosters, but most of our fosters work jobs, so they're working 9 to 5, and then coming home at lunch or doing as much as they can. But they're in homes still, but they obviously have their own pets and their own kids and their own jobs, and so it can vary, and they love them as their own, but obviously they'd be better in a home where it's
Yeah.
their own.
Right. Yeah. Right. And it's because I did quite a lot of foster in the past, and I had my own dogs and fostering dogs, and it can be stressful for that foster home too, trying to manage everything, especially if if you have a behavior case that needs a little extra work or a little bit more help, right?
Right. And unfortunately, because they're in that home, we've got a lot of people that, go on vacations and, they have sitters for their dogs, but the foster can't stay there. So then, we're playing the foster juggle, and dogs need to be moved because they don't get along with, the foster's cat, or, they need more help behavioral wise. So it's not, like they sit in one foster home and it's glorious until they get adopted. Dogs can go through, many different situations before they're adopted.
Right. And the big thing is, because I've had heard of that, where you have family life happens and the dog ends up having to go to another foster home, and then they get bounced around a lot, right? So it's still stressful, even though they're in a home. And is it better than probably being in a shelter? Probably, but it's still pretty stressful for that animal to be bounced around so much, right? And how about you, Tori and Sarah? How a day in the life in your shelter?
So I am the only full-time employee at our shelter. We have a couple, maybe like 3-4 part-time employees, but I go in Monday through Friday. We have about 12 dogs max at any given time, and we have 2 separate buildings off of our main building where we house the dogs. So I go in at 8 a.m. and I, feed and let dogs outside. We are super fortunate with our setup. We have a lot of property that's all fenced in. So as long as the weather's nice, our dogs spend all day outside.
Nice.
And then they go in at night, and then they have, walks with volunteers and stuff. So.
How big are your spaces that you have your dogs in, Sarah?
Outside it varies. We have just a ton of fences that we've built. I mean, they have giant yards, or we have like the small concrete ones if they're like sick. I don't know, like measurements, Tori, would
like inside. Yeah.
Our,
inside.
our inside kennels are 4x6.
Yeah. Yeah, so that seems to be a standard. So Stephanie asked, can you talk about if you work with breed specific? Do any of you do you work with breed specific rescues, Sam and Tori and Sarah? Like where you contact like say if you got a husky, you would contact the husky.
Right. We reach out to any rescue that we can. If we think it's necessary. But a lot of the times when we're reaching out to the rescue, it's the same reason. The rescue is not going to want a dog that's biting everybody or things like that. So it's been tough to get anything into rescue, and a majority of our dogs are pit bulls. So it's hard to find a pit rescue.
Well, and Sam, I do know if you get certain breeds, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I know Sam has said before, like, yeah, we don't get the right type of people to look at this type of dog. So like if they get a big beefy Rottie,
yeah,
that might be a case, right? Where you speak out Rottweiler rescue.
Exactly. Yeah. Or if the dog has a history, not a bad dog, it's just got a bad history that came with it, we would reach out to a rescue just to get it out of here so that, friends don't come in and adopt the dog kind of thing. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. Because that's the other thing. Because you, like you said, in your situation, Sam, you'd most certainly have to, give the dog or whatever. So it's a little bit different.
Well, and just so you know, the county shelter, it's everywhere. I mean, we do have dog fighting rings here, just like everyone does. And so, right, they start to know the people and their friends and their friends, but you always have someone new that might come in and go get that dog.
Right.
So you got to watch out for that in county.
And there comes that gut instinct where you're like, man, I just don't want to adopt this dog, but I better have a really good reason why I can't adopt the dog. Otherwise, the keyboard warriors are going to be at it. And the next thing you know, we're horrible and we stole their dog. So,
sorry, Sam, what's the, and I want, this is true for the rest of you. How long average, I know some are longer, some are shorter, average time your dog spends at your shelter?
Mm-hmm.
If you would have asked me that 3 years ago, I would have told you 6 weeks. Now I would tell you at least 3 to 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. How about you, Emily?
I'd say we're probably around that same average. Ours was a lot shorter. I mean, if we get, a doodle or, something fluffy, that's going to go pretty quick. But even our apps on those dogs have definitely been, a lot slower to be adopted.
We also have a lot of fosters that can only take puppies for whatever reason, and those seem to go a lot faster, but we try to screen a lot better for those. We take all of our dogs back, so we don't want them back in a year when they haven't trained them.
Yes, right.
And then Tori and Sarah, what about you guys? What is your average?
It's dependent on the dog, I would say. I mean, like,
And time of year.
What?
Time of year affects it as
Yeah,
well.
that too, definitely. I know if we have something little and fluffy, it's gonna go in a week or two. Versus like if we have a pit mix or something that has a history or it's bad with cats or it needs, some special kind of home, they could sit for up to, 6 months or so.
I would
What's
say
your-
our average is just a guess, there's no stat to this. Probably 4 months would be average.
So it's about the same across the board, it sounds like. What is your longest dog, resident dog for each of you?
Ours is a year.
A year?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Easy, right?
Currently, I would say probably 4 months, but historically, I think we've had one that was there for 2 years.
Oh my God.
Mel, we have had one for 7 months right now. We just adopted out the one that we had for a year.
Mm-hmm.
And what was the case on that dog that it was with you for so long?
She had hip dysplasia, and she also was not good with cats and a little bit dog selective.
Yeah.
Our longest term had severe separation anxiety, very, very bad. So, I think he was returned 4 different times.
Ooh. And you did finally find a home for him to stay in?
We did, and they actually tried to return him, and we begged and pleaded for them to keep him.
Oh.
And they did. They kept him.
So are they working on the separation anxiety?
They're working on it. I would say they've probably just made their garage as indestructible as possible, and that's where he goes when they're at work. They work with their veterinarian on medication, but nothing touches it. It's the most severe I've ever seen.
So I have a question in terms of how do you guys assess what dogs come into shelter, what should remain, what's safe for public? And those are the tough questions, right? I mean, I don't know if you guys have heard, there's a group called Losing Lulu for behavioral euthanasia. People who have gone through it. It's a really good group. And I am shocked and astounded at the levels that people would go through to keep a dog, which is, I think one I was reading where the dog had grabbed the back of the person's head, blocking, and she had like 30 some odd staples in her skull.
Horrible.
And so what is the assessment process? Because I know what happens around here, which isn't too much. Do you guys have something that you look at in terms of, measurements? Is it not just one specific test? Is it multiple people? What is it? What do you guys do in order to assess that?
This is my biggest passion, and I could talk to you guys about this for 3 days in a row. I think one thing that we all need to keep in mind when taking in dogs is we want people to adopt, right? So we need to adopt out responsible, resilient, pet-friendly dogs, because what we don't want to happen is to adopt out a dog with behavioral issues, and then God forbid they went, not disclosed, and then it bites a kid. That person's not going to want to return to rescue and adopt another dog. They're going to want to go to a breeder and start from a puppy.
Correct.
So I
And
think
not just that. I mean,
Mhm.
it's our responsibility to keep our
Yeah.
community safe and put
Yes.
safe dogs into our community.
it is. And I think behavioral euthanasia has been villainized and has become something that it's truly not. Our county shelter euthanizes constantly for behavior. They pride themselves in trying to put out responsible dogs and make rescue where you want to go to get your next pet, not always just a project dog. And I say that having a project dog myself, but I wouldn't expect every person that adopted a dog to put the time and commitment into a project dog. So that's kind of where we stand on it. We look at our unit as a whole. If we have one dog currently with a certain behavioral issue, we make sure the next dog we're pulling doesn't have that same issue. We try to keep it diverse behaviorally as much as possible.
Well, and I would agree that while behavioral euthanasia is a hot topic, it's like we have to really look at, yes, the general public, it is our responsibility to keep them safe, but it's also for the sometimes, and through no fault of the dog or anybody, sometimes it's what it is.
Exactly.
It's nobody's fault. It's just this dog just isn't safe to be out in the public world, and he's also not okay and not happy and miserable. So it's a quality of life issue, really. And it's just so hard when we want to save them all. I wish we could, but the truth is we can't.
Well, and I'm going to look at Sam here because I bet you can count on your hands. The rescues that come to you and you end up euthanizing. Right. And so we do have a couple in this area that are sending out biters. They're sending out dogs that should never be adopted. And you know what? They get put to sleep anyway.
Mhm.
Right. If you would just do it up front. Right. But I think, and Lisa and I have had this conversation a lot. It comes down to the donor thing. Right. And even, I don't think your county has to, you report it, Sam, but nobody's counting your euthanasias, are they? For any
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
We turn them in at the end of the year to the state, and then I turn them into the county, but that's, the reality is I'm not going to live I don't want my grandchildren living next door to a dog who I know is going to eat them because he just doesn't like kids. Or there's three of us that make the decision together. It's not just one person, but ultimately it comes down on me. So it has to be a dog that can live out in society. It can't be, you just can't, we don't put biters back on the floor. If the dog got adopted, came back, he doesn't go back on the floor. Unfortunately. We have in the past and tried to work with it, but we can't.
Right. There's no resources for it either.
Right. There's so many good dogs to save that saving the ones that are already biting that's not fair.
All right.
Yeah. And Kim, I don't know, do you want to talk about the recent one or no?
That one was a really hard one for me. They're all hard in their own right, but that one was a really hard one. It was a little dog, and when you think of little dogs, they can do less damage, but it's still not okay. And he bit his foster. We went to training. We tried some new things. We thought that we had it figured out what his triggers were and what to do to avoid them. And so we placed them with a dog savvy home who they were fully aware of all of his issues. And they had him dragging a leash for several days so that they could grab the leash instead of him. And he ended up biting them still. And we took him back and we talked with Joanne and the board, and we ultimately made the decision. He wasn't given warnings, and he was not warning biting. He was going straight for breaking the skin. And so he was probably I think maybe 20 pounds, maybe a little less than that. But we had to let him go. Because again, if it's not a dog that we would feel safe having in our home, we won't place that dog in somebody else's home.
Right.
Yeah, and I think for me, the reason why it was so hard is, that dog was biting because it came from a bad situation, right?
Yeah.
The dog didn't have a chance. It was in defense mode all the time. It had a history of just bad stuff, right? And it's just devastating because you're like, buddy, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. You know what I mean? But you can't bite people.
No.
Right.
You have to think too that a dog that is that tense all the time is not happy either. I always try to explain it. Like, think about having your shoulders all tensed up and how you feel. I mean, that's probably how the dog feels inside. And that's not a good way to spend your life,
Right. And
this
that's
is
what
my current foster.
Right.
Aw.
She's a meanie. She looks like a toughie. She's so cute. And one of the comments is Deb says, this is so sad. Yes, but Deb, I think people need to really understand when they decide they're not going to keep the dog or they're going to give it up, what happens to it and why, when you pick a dog, whether you choose. So I'd much rather have people not take a dog, not buy a dog, and not get a dog, and just stay dogless, than to get a dog and decide, well, this is too hard. Yeah, it's hard. I mean, no matter how much you love dogs, and even if you get a lovely, wonderful dog, which I have, it's still a lot of work. It's a commitment to that individual. Just no different than being committed to any relationship, right? And just people they just figure, oh well, if it doesn't work out, we'll get rid of it. And unfortunately, that's why it's sad. But as trainers, we need to do better to be able to put dogs in the correct homes. And as the general consumer, you need to really be mindful and thoughtful about what dog you're getting. And when you go to get a dog, what you want. Not because it's cute, not because it's this. You want to get the right dog for you. And I understand people, because that's the problem is people impulse buy certain dogs. It's so cute. It's cute, like the Huskies. Oh, it's so cute. It's adorable. Yeah, but oh my God, it's a tough dog to have and to own, right? And only certain people that can have that, can really do right by that breed, right? That they're going to be okay and going to love it with all their little quirks and idiosyncrasies, right? Right.
Jen said, I hear from people they need help from a behaviorist, but they can't afford it. So Jennifer, this is one of those things. I wish people would reach out, right? I give my free time and training to rescues. And if somebody really came to me and they were committed and they said, right, I cannot afford this. I really need help with my dog. We want to keep him, but I'm helping you. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? What can you afford? That type of thing, or work a payment plan out, something like that. I'm happy to help people. And I bet you'll find a dime a dozen trainers, that will.
I think, Joanne, one thing too is to talk about what a behaviorist is. That's a whole nother topic because people think they're behaviorists and they're not. I think it's tricky, right? So veterinary behaviorist that holds an actual degree requires more time, like lead time, and they are expensive. And so you hear this on the group that I'm part of, Behavioral Euthanasia Group for Losing Lulu. And they talk about the expense of it and the wait time, and they don't have that time to be able to wait that long. Anytime anybody calls me about any kind of behavior stuff, I'm like, look, I'll be happy to help wherever I can, and I'll get information where I am. And I'm with you. Like, I offer discounts to rescue if they've adopted and so forth. And I think we would all do that. And I spend time on the phone talking to people, literally hours on end of my own time that I could be sitting and watching TV or hanging out with my own dogs because I want to help this person. And, what upsets me, whether it's a dog that comes from, and honestly, I hear more rescue than I do dogs from breeders, very honestly, that have behavioral issues. I've heard both, but I do hear more from rescue. And maybe that's because the rescues have my name, I'm assuming. But the time that I sit there and spend just because I want to figure out, is this the right fit? I had a lady call the other day and she's like, and the dog was adopted out. And she said, he's not a bad dog, but he's super mouthy. I have back issues. I thought I could handle him. I go, you need to return him. He's not right for you. And I said, and there's no harm in that. And she felt really bad. I go, look, he got a little bit of a break. That's fantastic. But we know more and how we can place this dog appropriately. So I think a lot of times, and in rescue, right, we can be very judgy when we're judgy across the board. But how dare you, the dog pooped in the house and the first night you had it, so you're returning it, stuff like that. I agree. Some of those are ridiculous, but that also tells you you're not ready for a dog. Like, don't get one. But the behavior as part of it is just like, I would trust somebody who had more experience than me, who have gone through many more dogs, right? And have worked with so many dogs in their career. And I don't know if I'd consider them a behaviorist, but I would still definitely rely heavily upon what they've learned and seen and stuff like that. So
yeah, but to me, if you are a dog trainer and you are calling yourself a dog behaviorist without a degree, that's the same as saying I'm a doctor. Right. I mean, I read a lot of books, so I'm a doctor. Right. But it is. I mean, it's so disrespectful to the people who have spent their time and career to earn that. And so it's one of the most frustrating things for me to see. I'm a behaviorist. I'm like, you're not though. Right. So.
Yeah, but we try, and there's some trainers that know a lot about behavior, so you can still have resources available to you. And that's the other thing is we talk about is, protecting people from people who are well-meaning but are not giving the best advice as far as trainers, because there's been some cases where trainers, they went to another trainer, they got some pretty bad advice, and it made the situation worse, which happens, in my area more so because there's so many trainers here. We have an incredible amount of trainers that have taken maybe a couple of classes and a couple of seminars and they're training dogs. So then some of the stuff that's happening is and so they come to us at some point and go, and it's like, and the dog's already having more problems than before. It got worse. Yeah, because that's probably not what the right answer was, right?
Do you guys ever find that it's not the finances that it's the issue? It's the owners themselves aren't able to implement protocols or behavior modification themselves for whatever reason?
Yep.
Yes. Lazy.
Absolutely.
Not necessarily. And I think part of it too isn't necessarily late. I shouldn't say lazy. That's very judgy. Okay. Stop that. But what I think it is has to do with the fact that I don't think they understand where you're headed, right? Mm-hmm. And because you have to take step by step and say, okay, we're going to do this, and then they get impatient and push it. But I find that in any training, quite honestly, like people, I think the problem in the Society for Dogs today is that everyone considers them a property and looks at it as property versus a sentient being, right? Like, I'm not saying that they're this end all be all or whatever, but I'm saying is they still are still a sentient being with feelings and thoughts, and we are not looking at it in the same way. Yes. And then some people just want to squish the square peg into the round hole and stuff, and it just doesn't work. So I do think that's a big deal. Plus, they're captive animals. Let's look at that. I mean, truly, they're captive. And if you think our dogs who spend time in crates at home are captive, go walk through a shelter. Go take a look at those poor dogs who sit there day after day looking at you like that. So
let me ask you, because I know during COVID, you guys were because everybody's like, oh, the shelters are empty. Was that true?
Yeah, our shelter.
Not in our area. We did not have that.
Okay. You did not have that.
We weren't totally empty, but we were light.
Okay.
Yeah, I worked at a different shelter in Indiana at that time, and I mean, we were light. We still had a lot of animals.
Okay. So now do you find that since people went back to work, and I know there's probably no way to track it. Did you get some of the same dogs back, or it's hard to know that, right? You don't know.
We didn't. We are getting new dogs that are not trained. have had no training and not socialized.
Great.
But they're great dogs. They'll make somebody a really good dog.
Yeah.
Not them.
Yeah.
Not them. They don't have
Exactly.
time. Yeah.
Oh, no.
We do get judgy. I will say that. It is hard after day hearing the same story.
It
You're
is.
like, okay, thanks. But
Sometimes people will come back, same person, they'll have a different story.
Mhm.
Like you won't remember them.
Okay. So Emily, what breeds do you get mostly?
We tried to, since we can pull our own dogs and we don't have an open intake, we try to select just a wide range. Right now we have a lot of pit mixes, but we also have a lot of doodles, because we're seeing a large increase of them being surrendered, just because they also are high energy. And when people get them, they don't realize the commitment that they need, the grooming especially. We have 2 doodles. One just got adopted that were severely matted when we took them in. Needed a lot of grooming, but obviously our surrender, like the people who contact us for surrenders, I'd say that they're mainly pit bulls, pit mixes, large breed dogs.
And medical cases.
And yes, and Joanne nicely pointed out, Kim pulls a lot of medical cases. So a lot of dogs we have are
she owned
long
it.
termers just because they're severely in need medically.
Oh, wow. And like what type, like heartworm or?
Heartworm.
The last one had its
popping
eyes
out.
popping out.
I
That
mean-
was the recent one.
Yeah, I'd say just like the most random medical things you can kind of find. And they're great dogs. None of them are like instantly euthanizable. They need just kind of small weird fixes to be okay. But we take a lot of those.
Yeah. And so how do you, I know with the county shelter, do you guys advertise for people to come in and, besides your websites that say these dogs are available, are there any other things that you may do that might?
Well, we do Facebook. Our nonprofit does the Facebook, and then we're advertising any chance we can. We go on Marshallins. We're not gonna. That's our news. And then any chance we can to get our name out there, get the dogs out there, we try.
So compared to the dogs that the intakes that you get, how many people come in to adopt from you?
Our numbers have been up right now, but we had a real generous donor who has paid all of the adoption fees on adult dogs and cats until the end of the year. So, so our adoptions have gone up. They'll slow down now the next week or so, but
okay.
We always joke about, we're Niabi Zoo West because everybody, when they can't go to the zoo, they come walk around the shelter. Lots of lookers. My favorite is, we just want to play with the dog. Okay, I have 6 employees today.
Yeah.
We've got lots to glean. I want you to play with the dogs. Come to the volunteer orientation.
Right.
Wow, that's interesting. How about Sarah and Tori? Do you is your intake equaling your people coming in to adopt dogs?
I'm sorry, you cut out. My Wi-Fi is terrible.
Yeah, no, okay. So, like, are you getting like the dogs that you are, adopting out? Are you getting as many? Are people coming in to get dogs from you equal the amount of dogs that are coming in? I would say probably not, but
I mean, it's different because we're, managed intake, and we really just try to control our flow, and we have we're able to do that because we're a private rescue. So it's a little different. We don't take in more than we can, handle.
Okay. Okay. So and do you have people coming to your rescue to adopt dogs, on their own, or do you get them through, applications and stuff like that?
Usually through Facebook, and then they, apply online, and Pet Finder is huge, definitely.
We're by appointment only, so we don't let people just walk through the kennels.
Okay. Okay. So they have to make an appointment to come in.
Mhm. They don't have to have an application, but they have to have an appointment.
Okay. All right. And I suspect Kim and Emily, you get more just applications and.
Yeah, we process our applications before we do our meet and greets since we're all volunteer based and our fosters, have their own personal lives. So we approve an application and then they meet the dog and we see if it's a good fit and kind of go from there.
Okay.
Because people don't read. So
Yeah, we had Roscoe with Joanne and we had him posted for a while and it clearly said no children and then somebody applied for him who ran an in-home daycare.
Perfect.
They're not her children.
I think if you hear him, he won't. He'll bite your kids. Don't do
Yeah,
it.
he will definitely bite your children. So
Oh my God. They just-
So, I think one other thing people need to understand, just because you have a rescue, like they're running on skeleton, right?
yeah.
As well as possible. Some places such as like what's her name downtown? Pause. They have adoption counselors. They have a behavior department. They have a training department. They have a lot more resources available to them because they are a larger organization. When people start doing rescues and doing these things, they don't have that ability to sift and sort as much, depending on what their goals are. If you have you try to get in as many dogs as possible because you're putting dogs out because it's creating an income. That's a whole nother story, right?
right.
And I think too, the no-kill designation. We haven't touched that, but I would like that to talk about what that means. So if one of you ladies would like to jump on that one and tell us if you're a non-kill or what have you, what does that mean in terms of?
And what does that mean for the dog? A non. Well, I know the county they do use right? You guys.
We euthanize, but not based on time or space. It's on medical aggression, behavior.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, they were begging for kennels, like dog kennels, to not have to euthanize, right? And so doing their best.
Yeah.
So if somebody just wants to jump in. Sorry, Tori.
Our county is still euthanizing for space.
Okay. So it's not the no-kill designation. They don't seem to have that.
Now, Sam's were a no-kill, but I honestly, that term for them has progressed throughout the years. When it first started, probably 10 years ago, no-kill to them meant the animal will just live there forever, even if it's attacking everyone and not safe in society. But now I would say it's to a point where if it's medically suffering or if it's behaviorally suffering, they will still euthanize it. But they don't euthanize for space since we control the intake.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because some of the no-kill, and I think Tori hit it on the head, back in the day, and it's still true in some of the shelters, the dogs live in that shelter in that forever. Mm-hmm. So that, again, I go back to it's a quality of life issue. Is that something that really is beneficial for the dog? So, I'm probably going to catch a lot of heat for it, but here goes. I think it's because it makes people feel good about that.
I agree.
People feel good.
Or you can post how many days and hope the dog gets adopted, right? Like I'm not naming names, but locally I just saw one. There was a big Newsweek did an article on the dog. It's been there 700 and something days. And it was a big
2 years
that one of the local news people adopted the dog. Like, yay. And then next week, the dog's been here 780 something days. And it's like, if a person really wanted to save it because it was there for so long and then they returned it a week later, what's up with the dog?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, what traits are we trying to adopt out here? So,
I guess, and along that note is what makes me crazy, and I'm kind of whatever. I look at the dogs, and then they describe them. I'm like, okay, it doesn't like people, it doesn't like dogs. Okay, it's not potty trained by the description itself, and I'm like, quit blowing smoke up of people's rear end to try and make this dog look. If it's not okay, it's not okay. It's all right, right? And sometimes I get concerned about seeing that because they're playing on the emotional strings and heart strings of the people, which nobody wants to admit that. Nobody. I mean, I myself, I had to behaviorally euthanize a dog myself that was a young dog, 2.5 years old, that tried to kill my little dog. And I couldn't keep it in my house, you know? And if that makes me a bad person, it makes me a bad person. But I'll tell you something, I can sleep at night because I knew I did the right thing. So, and I didn't turn it into someone else's trouble, right? Because that's the other thing. That's what happens. And like, you get a lot of those dogs that people say, oh, so with the rescue that I've worked at, they've reached out to me about certain things and advised about, okay, there's this person interested or has to return this dog. We've had it because they take their dogs back too. And I start asking questions and I'm like, well, you know, and it takes that time to really humanize yourself to people instead of trying to be the bad guy, because when you're talking to them, it's a whole nother story, right? They're like, you're the one telling me I can't return my dog, you know, or I have to, whatever, right? Find another home, find another place, etc. And it becomes very tricky because Facebook, social media, right? And I think that all of that has contributed to a lot of dramatic situations we're facing with dogs.
Right.
You know?
And Facebook can be a great ally for rescues and shelters, but it can also be, you know, difficult. And what we were trying to, and I know we're all trying to shine the light a little bit of like what the dog really, what is really happening at the shelters and all that, and why people are turning dogs in the hopes that we can slow it down somehow, because it's like, I think the education is a big piece, and I don't think we're doing enough about it. Like, and I don't know what the right answer is, right? To how to get to the majority of the public to be able to educate them about, it's okay, don't get a dog then. Just don't get the dog. So that way, if you don't get the dog, they won't be turning it into the rescue, right?
I think another good reminder for people too on some dogs is these rescues are just that. They're rescues and not rehabilitation centers.
Right. Right.
Those are called sanctuaries. And
Right.
good luck getting into one.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Right. And then, you know, and it's one of those things. It's like some people who are, you know, there are breeders that are almost puppy mills, and they're not, their dogs aren't, you know, so that's a whole nother topic of conversation. But what we wanted for people to really see is like, really, this is kind of the different faces of rescue, what it looks, you know, what they have to, what they go through. And the burnout rate in rescue is huge. We did, you know, I did a lot. I used to do a lot more rescue work. I do help out rescues that reach out to me and help me out. And, you know, I'll do privates. I'll do assessments for free, and I'll do any help to keep the dog in the home, you know, to help them do that. But I myself found myself you know, because I love people, and there was for a little while I was starting to be like, I don't like people anymore because it was just so, because it's so upsetting. It's like, you know, because you when it's hard for me to have a poker face when they're like, oh, we don't have time for it. I'm like, you didn't have time for it now that it's only a year old. You had a year ago. I mean, come on. So, and I know sometimes life happens, and there are cases that they're legit. You have to you can't keep the dog. But I would say about 90% of them, the cases, the reasons are just, it's too hard, or it's, you know, it's too, you know, I don't want to do the work or whatever. And it's like, then now you change the life of the life of this dog, and you're really not going to know you're just going to hope that it's going to be okay. And sometimes it is, and sometimes it's not. And you know, the other issue that's really upsetting is people turning in old dogs.
Yes.
It's getting a lot of those.
Yep.
Yeah.
That is, to me, I don't get it.
It's horrible.
I just don't understand it. It's like, how do you, and I could see if the owner died, you know, of course that's, because we've had a few of those, but what are the reasons they give you for the old dog, for bringing in the old dogs?
Ours is going into assisted living.
Mm-hmm.
I hear that a lot.
So the handler's going into assisted living.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the family won't take the dog, right?
Right. Right.
Mhm.
Yeah. And that's kind of, I hate to say it, but it's kind of a legitimate
Or
reason. It's
they
just-
don't want to make the decision to euthanize it.
Right.
So they bring it to you and they're like, it has this wrong and this wrong and this wrong. And then, but it's a great dog. You're right. It probably is a great dog, but you don't want to take care of it, but you want to pass that on to somebody else.
Right.
Yeah. Because it's like, that's to me the more challenging, because they really have very little, I mean, very few people are coming in looking for senior dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Even though we recommend it for some of our folks when they lose a dog and they're seniors themselves, we always like, hey, there's probably a senior dog that can use your companionship until right. But so let me so how do the old dogs fare in a shelter setting? And probably not well.
Not well, no.
We put them in other rooms. We don't put them back with the general incoming. We find different spots for them.
I don't put our senior dogs in kennels. Usually they'll live in the office or they'll go home.
Okay.
Do you still have that shepherd, Sarah?
Jennifer?
Yes.
Yeah, she just got diagnosed with heartworm, so we're gonna have her probably a while.
Okay.
Jennifer, did I see that?
No. Sarah. We have a mutual friend, and she found a dog up at Gary, and I don't know if anybody knows, but Gary Animal Control, their dogs live outside. They have an indoor facility, but the dogs literally live outside, and they have some. But anyway, one of the girls had pulled a dog, an old shepherd they found wandering the streets of Gary that was wobbling around. She grabbed the dog, put it in the car, and then got in touch with Sarah. Somehow they connected, and so she has this sweet old shepherd.
Yeah, she's super sweet. She was really stressed out when she first got to the shelter, but she calmed down a lot, which is shocking for like a shepherd. Yeah, right. But yeah, she's got like old like fly bite wounds on her ears, just awful teeth, and now the heartworm thing, and she's a hot mess, but she's hanging in there, definitely doing better than expected, for sure.
She already has a spot, Kim. Just so you know.
Yeah, Kim, she's already got a rescue.
She already had nice.
I was going to give you Emily's number. Like, medical shepherd. Oh, we need that one.
Now I know who to hit up.
Yeah. I have a soft spot for them.
Yeah.
You know what though? I have a question. And I know, like Sarah and Tori, you guys kind of talked about helping out the local animal controls that you have. A lot of the rescues I have seen, right, started pulling dogs from the south. Well, it's funny because heartworm's on the rise in the Midwest, right? And I think a lot of that bringing a lot of the heartworm dogs up from the south. But now that there's so much need everywhere, have you guys kind of shifted a little bit to help more at home and pulled less from outside of the local area?
Yeah, I think that we are very, very local to our local area, because as long as, healthy, friendly, adoptable dogs are losing their lives in our hometown, in our backyard, that's our priority right now. Like, I don't see a reason to go down south and take, more and bring them in here.
And I will say too, like, I can understand where some of these rescues come from. I mean, when they pull dogs from the south, truthfully, they usually come, if not fully vetted, already at least 3/4 of the way vetted. My frustrations lie where Southern Illinois is currently an absolute disaster on animal welfare. It's just a mess. But none of those dogs are coming vetted, and most of them do have heartworms, so they're not getting pulled. So I can understand from a financial standpoint why they're choosing to go that route. It's just sad when it's right here in our own state, county happening, and they're not going there first.
Yeah, I mean, for us, we'll pull obviously locally first. We pull from Scott County Humane Society, and then we take a lot of surrenders. The dogs that we take that are more like from the south or different areas, Missouri, those kind of things, are dogs that I'm just gonna say it, are smaller puppies,
Mhm,
you know,
yeah,
things
yeah.
things that are local. 'Cause
Yeah.
we
Sure.
have to cater to our fosters too, which
Mhm.
Yep.
is bittersweet, but you can't really convince somebody who just wants puppies or small dogs to take a large breed, you know, pit mix who doesn't
Yep.
like cats, you know,
Exactly.
long termers. We don't have a lot of fosters who will take large dogs. That's our greatest need right now. But when we do have an opening for a large breed dog, we're pulling locally first.
The region you're into makes a huge difference as well. Like, you know, a year ago, we were in the same situation where there was no puppies or small dogs in this area, and we were pulling those in because there just weren't any here, and they go so fast. Now our region is seeing more and more of even our small dogs and puppies at animal control, which is like 5 years ago that never would have happened.
Right.
So I do have a question from a behavioral standpoint. When the dogs are in your care, and this is more for the shelters, what are you guys doing to help them with their stress levels?
That is a good question. We're reaching out to all the volunteers we can to come in and walk them, get them out. We have like a handful that are committed to coming. We do the Kongs. Anything we can try. If we're out cleaning a kennel, we might let a dog out to run for a while. Unfortunately, with my small staff, we can't do a whole lot.
Okay.
And how about you? And well, it sounds like Sarah and Tori have a bigger space where they do get out a lot more.
Yeah, I
do,
mean, they
and
have their yards and stuff, but a
Mhm.
lot of times I'm the only person at the shelter, like, so it's tough to really like give that individual attention to every dog like they, you know, need.
We really push overnight sleepovers with volunteers, and we have a dogs around town program, so someone can come take a dog for the day and bring them back. So we try to push those situations.
Great,
And then,
really good idea. I love that.
and then a lot of times too, our stress levels truly are controlled by what we pull. So if we have a dog that's upsetting the entire kennel, we know to pull dogs with better kennel presence, so it's not just chaos. So we're fortunate in that way, especially because we can only hold 12 dogs, so we can usually control it pretty easily.
Yeah. So I have to say, I went to I went with Suzanne Clothier to do something in a shelter in Georgia, and I came home with 2 little infants because in the South, the puppies never go into the shelters because they're going to get sick and die. So these 2 little Min Pin Chihuahua puppies were outside, like sitting outside. Because in Georgia, they can be outside because the weather's not bad, except when it's 100. But that time, it wasn't, and I ended up taking those 2 little puppies and bringing them home. Found a home for one of them, and the one I kept was a resource guarder, and everybody who wanted to adopt her had small children. So I'm like, so I guess you're staying with me. So she passed away in May, 13 years old. So she that wasn't the plan, but oh well. She ended up staying with me because she had some behavior things, and everybody who wanted her had small children, and then like that wasn't going to work, even though she was only a 13-pound dog, but still wasn't going to happen. But anyway, well, I wanted to thank you guys for coming on, and again, the goal of this was to kind of shine the light, like what really does happen. Whatever, if it's a privately owned or whatever, before you decide to give up your dog, there's a lot of things you can try to maintain the dog, so that the shelters don't have to make the tough decisions, and they don't have to. You know, it's a tough gig, and it's a tough job that you guys do, and that you go in and do it day in and day out. So we thank you for that, and trying to make the dogs better, because it makes their lives better and give them a life, because our society is kind of a throwaway, and we don't want to do the right thing. So I was like, that's my goal. I wanted to like have people like stop just giving it up because it's too hard or too difficult. There's a way to make it better and try to at least do better by, don't get the dog if it's too hard for you, or if it's going to be something that's a challenge. Just don't get one. And while we all, Lisa, Joanne, and I all have rescues and breed dogs, it's not a either or. It's what dog is there. It was right for you. We all have rescues and we all have breed dogs. Just kind of how we roll. And we all became dog trainers because we had Project Dog Story.
Yep.
and we had quite a lot of project dogs over the years. And as we get older, we just can't. It's harder to deal with those cases. Not that we couldn't. It's just
some of us jumps back on that track, but
right. Well, yeah. I took the Beagle to foster her. Well. Yep. She's been with me 14 months.
I wanted to say in terms of rescue, I do have a client that I work with who is 100% committed to her dogs, and she has 2. So she got 2 pit mixes, Biggie and Pac. Biggie came with a lot of health issues, and she has done everything she can. So from the lighter side of, sometimes we don't get to hear these kinds of cases, right, or situations. She took the 2 boys. They come for day school. They have a safe place with us. They are, no, they're not perfect, and everybody has their things. That's fine. But the kudos goes out to their mom, Carla, who has done everything to help these dogs' lives be better. And although I'm grateful that she did that, I knew she's, with the health issues that she's dealing with and stuff with Biggie, it's been heartbreaking to see it happen with her. Right. And so, I just have to say a lot of admiration for her for doing that, because not a lot of people would. So.
Yep. And there are people who, can give it a go. And there's some wonderful rescues out there, and some rescues that are, not so great, but everybody's heart's in the right place. You just have to kind of sift through what you have there. So anyway, thank you all for coming on. So much appreciate it. We'll hopefully send people your way so we can get rid of you can get rid of some of those dogs.
Yeah, and I will just leave you with, these guys are on here. We have Canine Kindness. We have Rock Island County, or QC Paws. We have say yours again, Sarah, Tori.
Sam's Rescue.
Sam's Rescue,
right? So even if it's not them, if it's them, super, because they spent their time here today. But even if it's not, give some money. Give some money, bring some blankets and bleach, and it's
really, truly
around the holidays, let alone all year long. But they're struggling, right, everywhere with so many dogs and
right.
cats.
And it's never enough. The dog food's expensive. It's really hard to keep everything. So for the holidays, that's kind of what in lieu of a gift, I would prefer donate to a shelter. Or donate a scholarship for a dog that that's a hard case, that they can come and train with us and get some help to try to find a home. So that's always those are always great options. All right, thank you guys, appreciate it.
Thank you.